What's up, my dudes? Yo, gonna be talking about the possibility of having an actual full-blown track editor in one of these newer milestone games, talking about specifically maybe in Supercross 3 or whatever the game is going to be for the next year. Probably won't happen in the next year, but, somewhere along down in the future, I'm sure they will eventually. I mean, you would think it has to advance to that point at some point. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it literally has to. It just only makes sense that it would be that way. I mean, you just imagine, like, and that's really the only progression it can go from its current state. You know what I mean? Like, literally, guys, that's really the only place it can go. Um, and I don't want to hear you guys giving me this bullshit about, oh, they can't have a full blown track editor because it's on a console. They got to make it for a console. They can't have a full blown track editor because of this or because of that or whatever. They'll stop telling me that. That's a load of bullshit. That's just bullshit. And we all know it. Like, they have a full blown PC based track editor in MX vs. ATV Unleashed on the PC. They have a full-blown track editor in the PC version of Reflex, okay? Those are both complete arcade motocross games. They're not even a simulator at all, right? So it is possible. Don't tell me it's not. They just can't do it, can't have a full-blown track editor. That's just, you guys need to get off that vibe because it's just simply not true. But basically, like, what it all comes down to, okay, is you've got to get to the point. See, they run into an issue where it's almost like you got to get to that point where you start allowing the ability for people to actually import their own, like, track decals and, dirt decals or their own objects and their own skyboxes and their own stuff and their own kind of trees, 3D modeled trees and all this kind of crap. You have to get to that point where you've got that basically like importing type system to it. You understand what I'm saying? But even if you don't go that far, right? I mean, MX versus ATV Unleashed PC track editor, if any of you guys have never seen that before, it basically has a lot of different like little like pre-made vibed stuff like that. You understand what I'm saying? So like I'm kind of building a track here. Give me just a second. Basically, if some of you guys don't really understand what the hell I'm talking about, like you have with the Unleashed track editor, you've got there's like a selection of I don't know, like 10 or 20 different pre-made skyboxes you can pick between. There's they got a bunch of different like actual painting decal top vibe things on that Unleashed track editor where it's got like you can literally paint like sand on the track. You can paint whatever kind of look you want to give to it. You understand what I'm saying? And so they have all that, and they have quite a few different like little pre-made objects in there that you can put down, like little pre-made rocks, pre-made trees, that whole kind of thing, right? So they have all of that. That's not really that big of an issue to get that in one of these milestone games. They could have that in the track editor right now. All of that stuff. Pre-made skyboxes, like a selection of them, you know what I mean? And even if they didn't have basically where they let you import your own things, because when you start, basically what I'm getting at here is when you start giving that ability to where you can import things, then you're going to open up the door for like importing, Monster Energy banners. I mean, that was a shitty ass example because it's already sponsored by Monster Energy. It would already have what I'm trying to get at is like people would be able to import anything. I mean, fucking like a Lipton tea banner or whatever, and import all this different kind of stuff that's not even necessarily like licensed by that actual, milestone, but people would be having that in their custom tracks on a milestone track editor. See, so that's kind of where it starts becoming a little bit tricky there because you start getting all these like real life type things people are putting on their tracks and importing that kind of stuff in there. And it's not really like Milestone kind of loses control over what people are really putting into it. But what I'm getting at is even if they didn't have that extensive of a track editor, you can still have a crap load of pre-made trees where you can actually put them anywhere you want to on the track, pre-made actual rocks that you can put anywhere on the track. I'm talking like literally like 100 or more different pre-made trees and rocks to really give your own track its own kind of flair and feeling to it. At least 10 to 20 different skyboxes, be able to change the lighting effect on your custom track like you can in the Unleashed track editor. All of that's done in a very, very simple track editor. And then it gets into the whole actual top-down full-blown terrain editing, okay, where you get away from that pre-made pieces and you get more into the actual, you're building the terrain any way you want to. So you can literally build any sort of rut, any sort of braking bump, any sort of massive hill or dip down in the ground or change of elevation or anything. Once you get that full-blown actual terrain editor where you've got like a lower, raise, smooth, all these tools to actually do it to that full-blown extent, once it gets to that level, that's really when it becomes an actual track editor. You understand what I'm saying? Because then you start being able to make all of these one-of-a-kind, very, very different things. That's a true, like, make unlimited possibilities, make your game last a decade plus, hence the Reflex track editor and the MX Simulator track editor. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, they're eventually going to get there at some point. That's just that natural progression to the evolution of a track editor, right? It's eventually going to get to that point. I'm just telling you guys right now. Within the next 2 or 3 years, these milestone games, it's going to get to where they probably start allowing you to adjust the lighting and the skyboxes, and then they start slowly allowing you to pick the different kind of actual track compound, actual dirt compounds. We've already seen a little bit of that with the little, actually being able to put sand sections in on the Supercross 2 track editor. But it'll eventually get to the point where you can make like clay, loam, hard packed, whatever the hell you want to make, and place objects wherever the hell you want to place them. And, yes, I understand they make it for a console, right? They make their games for consoles, but what's so wrong about having a more like standard, let's say they just couldn't have that full-blown track editor on a console for whatever reason. It's like too complex for a console, right? Let's just say they just couldn't have it on a console. What the hell's the problem with having a full-blown top-down terrain editor, full-blown importing objects and your own decals and your own skyboxes and making literally any kind of track you could possibly imagine? What's so wrong with having that on the PC version of your milestone motocross or supercross game? Somebody literally tell me the fucking issue with that, because there is no issue with that. There's no problem with that. I understand a lot of you guys play on console and it's going to be like, oh, that's unfair. Oh, you can't do that. Oh my God. Like, listen, bro. All that's going to do is help the game. How do you not understand that? Like, Jesus Christ. I mean, that's the way it is on Reflex. There is no track editor on the actual console version of Reflex, only on the PC version, right? There is no track editor on the console version of Unleashed. It's only on the PC version. So I'm saying that's not like a crazy weird thing for a motocross developer to do. They've literally already done that. Like, they've already done the whole only have the track editor in the PC version. But what I'm getting at is, they already have a little bit of a track record of being able to have a track editor in the console versions, so they can just have like basically however much that certain console can handle, that sort of track editor for the console versions of whatever future motocross or supercross games they have, but then have that unlimited track editor for the PC version. That makes no sense to why they wouldn't do that. It makes no sense. Like, they just have to give us the tools to be able to have like that full-blown terrain editor system. It really wouldn't be that hard for them to put that in there. But see, they have to do all these like pre-made pieces, and then everybody's track looks the same, and you can't move objects around, and there's not different dirt compounds, all these little things with their current track editor. That's all limited like that because they're basing it all off of just a console like being able to work on a console, but that's so stupid. That's never been the way that anything has ever been in gaming. It's always been where the PC version typically has way more customization and editing type properties to the game, to the PC versions of any game out there, right? I mean, literally any game you can imagine, the PC version typically has some sort of editor, some sort of like full-blown, basically being able to make, custom full-blown, one-of-a-kind custom content in that sense. That's just standard. So I don't want to hear this bullshit where it's like, they can't do that. That's unfair. They can't have a full-blown track editor for PC because I'm a console gamer. Like, shut the fuck up, dude. Stop saying shit like that. Why would you punish being able to have something so cool in a Milestone game and being able to have such cool custom tracks, such one-of-a-kind different design tracks, just because you play on console and you're not going to be able to play on it on PC? That's retarded. I'm not saying to completely take the track editor out of the console. I'm saying make it as good as you possibly can for whatever console that is, but why the hell would you limit? And like basically what they're doing right now is just having what can only be in a console track editor on the PC version of the game. It's really, you're playing like a console level track editor on the PC version of the games, and that makes no sense. Like there's literally no point. There's just no point in that. And this would be so massive. They would sell so many more copies of their game. Their games would last so much longer if they actually had that full-blown track editor. And who the hell knows? Maybe the next generation consoles like the PS5 and all that shit is going to be where it can handle a crap load more. And so, maybe you console guys will even be getting more in the future in that sense. But there's no reason to limit what you're doing on the PC just because you have a lot of people playing on your console. There's just that just literally makes no sense. But I get the whole side where it's like, they want to basically like there's kind of I don't know how that even works, but MX Simulator's got to have some sort of thing of this type of vibe where it's like, people literally go in there and make like Rockstar Husqvarna bike graphics in MX Simulator. They didn't get permission from Rockstar or Husqvarna or any of that shit. People go in there and make literal, real life, exact Yamaha replica bikes. And even though Monster Energy does not sponsor MX Simulator or is not licensed to MX Simulator or any of that, you've got literal Monster Energy Supercross replica tracks on MX Simulator, you know what I mean? That people, because you can make anything you want to make. You can import anything you want to import. I'm literally riding with a full-blown Pro Circuit Monster Energy Kawasaki replica bike graphic in MX Simulator, right? And you can't even ride with something like that. Oh, yeah, I guess you can on the Milestone games. But, you can't even ride with something like that on, like, MX vs. ATV All Out. You could ride on something like that back in MX vs. ATV Unleashed. I'm pretty sure they had a Pro Circuit bike graphic on that, like a bike skin. And I think, when it's actually in the game from the developer, like it's actually made by the developer, that's when they have to have all the license shit, right? So that's why Milestone has to get all this stuff licensed, because these are the default tracks. But if they just opened up a track editor to say, hey, we're technically not really responsible for what you guys import into this track editor. You technically can import anything you want to import, have any kind of bike you could possibly imagine, any kind of track design you could possibly imagine, any kind of object you could possibly imagine, what the hell ever. That's kind of how MX Simulator gets away with it, and that's kind of how Reflex got away with it on their actual PC track editor. Reflex doesn't have all of the official license crap, and people are making all kinds of official replica stuff on the PC track editor of Reflex with literal Monster Energy logo stuff, all of that shit. So it is possible to have that in an arcade motocross game. It is possible, okay? But it's just Milestone just kind of has to figure out a way to do it where they can have that in there, where it's kind of like they leave it up to the community to put all that kind of crap in there and do whatever the hell they want to do. It's kind of more of a, well, we didn't really tell, we don't really have control over what these people choose to import into our game. So it kind of takes the responsibility off of Milestone at that point, kind of how the PC track editor is on Reflex and the track editor is on MX Simulator and all of that, being able to import whatever the hell you want to import into it. So that's eventually what any motocross game out there should have. That's what they should have on PC. And if you could somehow make it work on a console, you should have it on consoles too, where it's a full-blown track editor. But I think that's where it gets a lot more tricky, because it's a lot harder to just like import your own shit into a console. You know what I mean? It's a lot harder to like import your own 3D models and your own skyboxes and all that shit into a console like that. But who knows what's going to be in the future of the console gaming scene. But all I'm saying is this is the absolute ticket for any, not only motocross game, but any racing game or any game, period. Every game should have, hell, every single Call of Duty should have a full-blown map editor in it. Why the fuck is that not a thing? Like a full-blown PC map editor. And I think they do have a little bit of that with some of the Call of Duties. Like the community just came together and made like custom zombie maps and stuff like that. But I just mean all of them should have a full-blown editor to be able to make whatever kind of map, whatever kind of track, whatever kind of they desperately need this kind of stuff. And you just don't understand what that does for a game when you get, like, it's one thing to just have this sort of track editor in a game. I mean, it'll help the game out quite a bit, but not even 1/1000th of what a full-blown track editor like what MX Simulator and Reflex has in it would do for the game. Like, you guys need to just come to that realization on what it would be like, what it would be for the game. That's a big reason why Reflex and MX Simulator has lasted a decade plus. That's a big reason why, and I just don't feel like hardly any motocross game can get to that point if they don't have that kind of track editor. And I think the next MX vs. ATV game, the one after All Out, needs to have a full-blown PC track editor. Why the hell would you not have that? You have got to have that, MX vs. ATV. I mean, I'm saying it's a must-have at this point. You've got to find a way to get that in there like that. But it's kind of how people make mods for these MXGP games and stuff, kind of the same difference. And there's been a dude even made like snow track versions of some of the default MXGP tracks. It's kind of like that, it's almost like you're modding the game in a sense. So it's not like an official track editor, it's not like an official whatever editor, but it's still there and you're still able to use it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like you'd have to go download this sort of track editor program for whatever game it is, and then you're able to do whatever the hell you want to do. And that's kind of how MX Simulator is. Like when you just go download MX Simulator, there's not a track editor in there. You have to go download the actual blank track and then literally put in the property code of the game -- editor before you can edit anything. But to me, it just makes no sense as why you wouldn't have that full-blown track editor in every single future motocross game out there, period. Like, it's just so laughable when you look at the kind of track editor that's in these Milestone games and compare that to like a MX Simulator track editor or a Reflex PC track editor. Literally fucking laughable. But a lot of people are just so hardcore console gamers that they don't even understand that realm of what you can actually do on PC with a full-blown track editor. They don't even really understand what the hell that even is. Like, they don't get it, When I literally say you can do whatever the hell you want to do and put whatever the hell you want to put into it on a MX Simulator track editor custom track or a Reflex custom track on PC, I mean it. Anything. There is no, you're placing these pre-made pieces and building on this pre-made square arena stadium, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like that at all. You're literally starting with a full-blown blank canvas. I'm talking nothing on the track. You gotta put your own decals in there, whatever the hell you want. You can make space tracks, dimension tracks, anything your mind could possibly imagine. Your own replica version tracks of anything, your own fantasy tracks, free ride tracks, trail tracks. You can place objects anywhere you want to. Place logs on the track. Place rocks on the track. You can make Supercross tracks, hybrid tracks, motocross tracks, 50cc tracks, huge, unrealistic long jump tracks, fun, weird-ass, super hard, super traction concrete tracks. Anything your mind can possibly fucking imagine. Damn, we need this for these milestone games, guys. We really need this shit. And I just feel like if they would do that, even if it's just on the PC for right now, that would help their game so massively. So either way, just want to come here and talk about that a little bit, boys. It just really frustrates me when people disagree with that. Why the hell would you ever disagree with having a full-blown PC track editor in the milestone games? There's literally no negative to that at all. There's no negative. The only thing about it is if you only have a console and you're just a console gamer, yeah, you're going to miss out. So go buy a fucking PC and join the rest of the world that now plays on PC. You know what I mean? There's so much more you can do on a PC, dog. And I was in your shoes at one point. Trust me. I was a console only, didn't know what the hell hardly anything was on a PC back when I played Reflex on the 360. And then I got on PC and it was like, holy shit, this is what I've been missing out on this whole time. I'm telling you, man, it's worth the money for a gaming PC 10,000%. And it frustrates me that Milestone's not even getting the most out of what they could have in their PC versions of their games. Like, they're literally not. They just have a console editor basically in their PC game, PC versions of their games. Makes no sense at all. But either way, really hope Milestone gets this going at some point. Really, really hope they figure this out. So instead of just like slowly 10% improving their current track editor, which is going to take us another literal century for them to ever get somewhere, really get somewhere with that kind of track editor with like pre-made pieces and all that bullshit and pre-made areas that you're building it in and stuff. We're never going to get anywhere, guys. I'm just telling you. Eventually, you have to have that full-blown track editor if you ever want to have any real difference of track design and unique stuff and really having like an actual track editor. You know what I mean? The current track editor in these Milestone games is literally 1/1000th of what an actual track editor can be in these games. So either way, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.